Welcome to another episode of Business Intelligence. My name is Dr. Wei Chun-Wan. I'm here with Joey DiGangi.
Hey everyone.
It's a very interesting ride. We now have a professional recording studio, and we want to keep providing really good contents to you. And this is really after being dormant for some time, we're diving right back into it. Last year has been a pretty wild ride.
Yes,
and I think everybody still experiencing the disruptions that in the marketplace. And we've talked a lot about, what kind of disruptions that we've had.
Right.
Joey, how has your summer been?
Oh, it's been very busy.
Yeah.
We've a lot of new clients to work with, a lot going on. So everybody's coming out pandemic.
So I don't want to be portrayed as kind of like an oracle. Like, didn't we talk about this last year? Like, we talked about the fact that last year when everybody was shut down, and we said that that would probably be the best timing to start your own business. Start thinking about how you should expand your business, because when this ends, and this will end, things will kick right back up. And unfortunately, as an economist, I could tell you that people have this wild thinking by believing that economic recovery is like a lighting switch.
Right.
You could turn it on and off as you wish. It doesn't work that way. I mean, we're still witnessing a lot of disruptions in the marketplace, including the supply chain, and people have been hearing about the shortage of some semiconductor chips. I mean, if you are trying to buy a car, whether it's used car or new car, this is a really bad timing. If you want to buy a house, oh my goodness, the real estate market is completely out of the whack. And I think especially in big metropolitan areas, the housing price could be up as much as 25%. I've been hearing some interesting and wild stories myself.
Even some clients that they're in the business of building houses, the whole supply chain, like it's completely disrupted.
Yeah, I mean, some of the pricing of the raw materials have gone down significantly because, again, it's going through an adjustment period, right? So we're seeing some of that returning back to somewhat normal, but it's still got a long way to go, right? So I want to tell you, I mean, I did a road trip back to California from Pennsylvania, where we are, and then for every hotel that we stayed, every restaurant that we visited, they were short in staff.
Right. Yeah.
And I am now seeing the hiring signs everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And I, again, been talking with a lot of business owners, and they have really trouble finding not just the right and good people, but just people.
Right.
Just people. I was staying in one of the hotels in Las Vegas, and I had to wait in line to check in. I don't remember how long. I mean, it must have been at least an hour. And then after I get to the front desk, the person, first of all, thanked me for my patience, but secondly, relayed to me his concerns of not having enough coworkers to help deal with the customers that they're getting. And it's just crazy.
Yeah.
I know a repair shop, a car mechanic, that talked about how much business that he's been getting. He has to turn business away, he said to me that he would probably never been able to get another year like this. And this year he's on path to make a record profit.
Wow.
And so it's affecting every one of us. And for the upcoming holiday season, you see how all the major ports around the world are congested, right? So people are pulling hard goods left and right, despite the fact that the coronavirus situation is still very significant and serious in pretty much all areas in the world.
Right.
But people are expecting that we have a somewhat normal holiday season, especially in the West, and people are preparing for it. Don't get me wrong. I think the variants are still very serious. Right. And I don't think that we could eradicate COVID anytime soon. But what are the opportunities embedded within is the question of interest, and which is why I think you should listen to our podcast because we're sharing our observations with you.
Yeah.
And like Joey said, I mean, our business has seen some really interesting spike in customer demand. And we're serving clients, that span from all these different industries. It's crazy. I mean, we have clients that are coming to us from construction industries, fitness industry. Like for example, like these industries were affected
the most
last year, and now they're coming back, right?
Yeah.
So they want consulting services. They want, to build a better and a more effective business models.
The digital, like they all these businesses that got forced into this digital environment.
Yep.
Now they're the ones that seem to be pulling ahead because they got thrown into the gauntlet and overnight had to become either experts or find experts to work with. And now you see like they're revamping sites, they're building out new platforms, the revenue models that they've had to come up with just to sustain. Like the forced innovation is we get to see a lot of that, and it's really exciting.
It is really exciting, and obviously it creates a lot of opportunities for ourselves, and because we're serving them left and right, and we're so busy to catching up with what we can provide. And last year, I remember we talked about the hit in the real estate market.
Right.
A lot of companies abandon their office space because you simply cannot work in person, right? So people are relying more on Zoom, the conferencing software, and that's not going away because we're still meeting a lot of people remotely.
Yep.
Right. And there's a lot of reason for that. Once you have kind of like the paradigm shift, it's a done deal. Like people have adapted to this new work relationship and work environment.
Yeah.
And you see all these technology giants, they want to honor their words, right? Even though in some areas in the United States, it's somewhat safer. It's safer to return to in-person work environment.
Right.
But still, a lot of companies said, if you want to work remotely, that's fine. We'll respect your decision. So a lot of companies, they're not returning to the old traditional model.
Right.
And I've talked to one of the clients of our own who works in the commercial real estate market. Very interesting. You would think that the real estate market is only skyrocketing in the residential space. No, real estate market for the commercial space is also skyrocketing, right? And you'd be interested in knowing this, right? So this is what one of my clients does. So she goes out and she manages commercial space. She represents this big company. She would go out and evaluate all these different spaces that and make recommendations for her company to purchase. And then they will lease the space out, the building out, to companies on pretty long-term leases. Right, we're talking about 7 years or 10 years, right? And I was like, wow. The COVID must have hit you pretty hard because I don't see the commercial people coming back to the real estate market and wanting to lease buildings for that long of time. And she's like, no, Wei-Chuan, you're wrong. It's incredible. Like now, the only thing that changes is that they're not trying to turn the spaces into cubicles.
Oh.
They're using the spaces for all these different, purposes, right? It may be... large scale commercial kitchen, for example, or large scale commercial spaces for meetings or for large scale meetings, and all these different things. Who would have thought, in just a couple years, the ideas of cubicles is going away.
Right.
I remember when I was working in consulting. Our offices in San Francisco and Los Angeles, the whole point is how many more cubicles can we accommodate? Right? And to a point that they are talking to the senior leadership, they're talking to the senior managers and ask them to give up their office spaces so that they could build more cubicles. And their argument was, oh, you know what? All these managers, you want to get closer to your employees. You don't want to be hidden away in the corner offices. And I remember that actually pissed off a lot of managers because, in the office environment, people see having a corner office or even office with a view as a trophy.
Right.
That's your, at the end of the day, that's your reward of working hard or being promoted, right?
Yeah.
So the whole idea is different. Now, Joey, I know that you've talked about some of the clients that we've served. What are some of the other things that you have observed and witnessed?
Yeah, so the other big space that that's really kind of taking off, mental health. We have I'd say a decent percent of our clients are in some way, shape, or form the mental health space, and the case with all of them is that they were in the middle of a pandemic, and they recognized some opportunity to help people. They saw maybe things that were stressing them out, stressing others out, and they saw it as an opportunity. They saw it as hey, I'm sitting at home, I can try to do something about this, and they recognized the need. So I think that's been one of the fastest growing spaces that we've observed.
What is their revenue model? What do they do?
So it depends, and a lot of it, depending on the person's credentials, a lot of people are doing the counseling, like different kinds of consultations delivered remotely, integrating with Zoom, integrating with Google Hangouts, the whole deal, and doing everything online, just building kind of like an online, therapist's office. Others are building these communities with different levels of membership, different access to helpful content to support them along the journey. All different kinds of revenue models, and some of the best ones that we've observed do both. They find a way to leverage their own time, their own talents, but also have a very scalable, easy to access aspect of their business. And it's not either or kind of thing. You find all different ways to reach people where they're at, depending on what their situation is, and you find ways to work with everyone. And I think that's what the best models are doing right now.
Right. So again, I mean, I think these people have adapted pretty successfully, right?
Very much so. Yeah.
They're utilizing the remote software that we have, right, to talk to people, and there are most of them are individual entrepreneurs. Like they have this new ideas, and combining with their expertise, they're trying to deliver a set of services to the marketplace to cater to that needs. And I could also see that the landscape has changed very significantly in the technology space as well, because you see all these interesting platforms that have been there for quite some time, and even more prosperous during COVID. Oh yeah, like Fiverr, for example. Like individual freelancers, they will go to Fiverr and try to get a booking of their services. Yeah, and they just deliver there.
Their situation was. You have this on one hand. You have like this huge demand because there's the like people that can't come into work. Right. At the same time, you have people that maybe weren't able to keep their job during COVID. Right. That have this talent, and there's this surge of people looking for ways to get involved. So that was
Yeah, I was talking to a few restaurant owners, right? So they have problems getting people come back to work, right? Right. And understandably so, because obviously restaurant workers, really tough job. Oh yeah, very difficult work environment, right? Very difficult work environment, and not good pay. But right now, things have changed, because restaurant owners are actually willing to pay a lot more to get people come back to work. Yeah, seeing all this demand for meals, and people want to go out after COVID. Yeah, it's crazy, right? And then I've been talking with a couple of restaurant owners, and they all relate to me that their people don't want to come back to work, because they don't want to change their lifestyle. Right. They understand now, after having COVID, they realize how much time that they could have to their selves. Right. And they don't want to abandon that new lifestyle, and they want to do something else. Yeah. Which is causing a constant disruption in particularly the service industry. We're talking about hospitality that covers restaurants, hotels. I don't think we could go back to quote unquote normal anytime soon. Right. Right. So how do we make sense of it? Right. So you see a wave of individual entrepreneurs. Yep. Young or old. Right. Yeah. So for the older generations, they probably have worked in the traditional work environment for a longer period of time. Now they realize, you know what? I want to do something on my own. For the younger generation, they see how slow the earnings have been, slow in pace, in terms of earning increase, and they want to do something on their own. Right? Yeah. So the difference between the kind of like the older entrepreneurs and the younger entrepreneurs are two things, right? Number one is access to capital. Right? So older entrepreneurs usually have larger, resources in terms of capital. Younger entrepreneurs, they don't, right? Right. Number two is experience. Yep. Right. But I would actually argue that with all these tools available, younger entrepreneurs actually stand with a very good opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Because, for what we've observed, as a business service provider, is that oftentimes you need to educate the older generations about the available tools out there.
Right.
You have to teach them what SEO even means. How do we set up websites? How do we set up the revenue models? What are the available payment tools out there? How do you integrate with PayPal, Stripe, and things of that sort?
It's different sets of experiences.
It's a different set of experience because they probably have never been, kind of like the consumers that are being targeted in this new economy. So they are still very much trapped by the traditional mindset that I need to go to school. I need to go to physical stores, brick and mortar stores, to pick things up. At the same time, the younger entrepreneurs,
they're getting marketed to 24/7 through social media, so they have some notion of, well, I know social media marketing is pretty popular. And that's a good point.
Exactly. So how do we make sense of this, and how do we help these people, right? So we've been talking about just among ourselves, working with the local business community. I mean, we see grant opportunities.
Right.
Right. So the state agencies, not only in Pennsylvania, but also in other states as well, they have now grant opportunities to help entrepreneurs to get out and maybe get the support that they need.
Yeah. Especially with COVID.
Especially with COVID. There's grant support. There's also, tax workshops that we ourselves attended.
Right.
And not because that we need the information or knowledge, but we wanted to understand, what people are looking for.
Right.
Right. There is an untold benefit of tax liability reduction if you own a business. Everybody knows that. So there is just a lot of interesting opportunities that come out, and combining with the fact that the economy is recovering, but are we seeing the results? We are seeing the results, but the demand has not been met.
Right.
And I think I particularly am very interested in seeing how the holiday season is going to pan out. I pray that the variants, the coronavirus variants, wouldn't negatively affect the holiday season too much. And my guess is it won't, because people are used to this idea. Yeah. People are used to coronavirus. It is going to be there.
Right.
How do we, quote unquote, eradicate the issue? I think what we're looking for may not be kind of like the ultimate answer of, getting rid of it once and for all, because it's not going to be possible, because you always will have variants. And I think people in the past couple of years have found a way to deal with the situation and recognizing the fact, acknowledging the fact that we need to coexist with the virus.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
If that's the case, what is it that we business owners need to do? What is it that we need to do? Right? So we talked about digital footprints.
Yep.
You can't avoid paying sales tax to Google, Facebook, or Instagram, unfortunately.
Right.
Right. You gotta have some exposure in the online marketplace. And that includes your website. That includes you having a good plan out financial model. Yeah. Even the traditional brick and mortar stores like restaurants. I mean, during COVID times, so many restaurants that are doing takeout now. Like even for the mom and pop shop around the corner during COVID times. You need to work with service providers like Grubhub or Uber Eats to survive. Right? Yeah. And now they cannot go back because they've already got the system set up. Why would they want to go back?
Yeah, and people's expectations now have been set that everyone worth going to has Grubhub. Like there's that piece of it too. Like there are certain perceptions that aren't going to go back, even if and when the virus is completely eradicated. People have been changed by this.
Right. So that's the first thing, right? You got to have some sort of digital presence, and you have to really understand what it takes to have that model set up. Secondly, I would argue, is that it affects people's idea about long-term planning. Much like what happened in 2008, 2009 when we had the financial crisis. Yeah. People at the time, especially people closer to retirement age at the time, got shocked to the core because they wanted to retire, and now they realize that the value of their assets in the retirement accounts have shrunk significantly to a point that they couldn't retire. And I think people still have vivid memories about what happened in the financial crisis. The uncertainty is always going to be there. There's no way around it, right? And so when we talked about like long-term financial planning for entrepreneurs, what does that mean? Because your revenue model is not going to be sustainable at always. Right? As always, you have to really build in some sort of innovative strength within your business or even within your people, within your mentality. Right. To think about, what is your lead generation strategy? How do you bring in customers? Do you have diversified sources of lead generations? Or what does your core business look like? How much profit and revenue your core business brings in? And do you have some sort of, business segments that are currently not core, but have the potential to become core? Right. So long-term financial and business model planning that relies on entrepreneurial spirit, innovative thinking, has to be built in somehow within your business. And I argue that's probably the second most important takeaway, as we've learned from the marketplace. Everything is so dynamic, and you can't be so sure that things won't change.
So after all that, if you're listening, or you're watching, you think, where do I start? I think we get clients, a lot of times, and they'll come in at various levels. Some are first-time entrepreneurs, some are, they have established businesses. They're just looking to, enhance one particular piece of it. But every time, I think we get a lot of questions that usually start focused around some piece of technology. I'm looking for, to improve my Facebook advertising, or I'm looking to build a subscription model into my website. And first thing we always do then is, when we're working with them, we stop in the middle of that conversation. We just say, okay, talk about your brand. Talk about what is that relationship you want to have with your customer. What value are you ultimately trying to deliver? Instead of trying to tweak your value, tweak your customer discovery around the technology, flip that. We'll understand what you really want to do, what you're doing best, maybe what you could be doing better. Like you said, if there are parts that aren't performing but could perform, and then from there, we'll work backwards. We'll look at what technology is available to you. We'll survey what's out there, and then build a solution from there. And that's how I think that's the best approach.
And don't get me wrong. I acknowledge the fact that not every business is digital oriented. Not business is online oriented, because there are a lot of clients that we serve are traditional type, and their core business value is built upon the relationships and connections that they could build at the individual level. Right. And I think that's a perfect model, because the professional service industry in particular, you rely on the connections, and you rely on the very much, kind of like the quality of service that you could deliver. And that's how you sustain your business model. But there's got to be a better way for you to run the business more effectively and efficiently. Your clients right now are forced to get used to the online meetings because of coronavirus. Right. They're not going to blame you for not showing up at this time. So you should leverage that. And I think that's a great point, right? The introduction of using Zoom, that's not hard, right? Zoom, Google Meet, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, we promote and preach those concepts all the times with the traditional types of clients, right? And they appreciate it. Their clients appreciate it, because they don't want to take the risk of COVID.
It's still the same type of interaction. It's the same what they want to be doing with their client. It's just leveraging certain technology to do it when they can.
So if you fall into that category, what should you do then? Automation, is a big thing, right? So I don't think that you need to think about giving up your core value, which is to still cultivate relationships at the individual level with your customers and clients. But internally, there is a lot that you could do. Right? How do you manage the leads? Do you have a proper customer relationship management system? Do you have a proper tool for you to outreach? Right? Or can you look at the system and say, "Oh, I'm comfortable with the level of automation that I got"? Or do you still have to rely on, labor, like manual labor, to manage the database of your client contacts. I mean, in the valuation world, on the finance side, client list carries value, right? Are you treating, if you believe the core value of your existence is all these relationships and connections that you have built, are you treating it with such importance in your system, right? And unfortunately, I mean, a lot of cases that we have seen with our clients, they don't know how to do that, right? So, for example, some of the clients that we serve, we built them with the automation system, right? So, you know, when the leads come in, we have a database that stores the contacts and make sure that we have the tools available to our clients that'll distribute the leads to the right personnel and then follow through, you know, the entire engagement process.
Yeah, still building towards that personal relationship. It's just trying to do it more efficiently. But still, it's not a choice of automation or personal relationships. It's automations to enhance the personal relationships. And that's what I think people miss sometimes. They think that they, you know, you can still find ways to work with people.
Yeah, and usually the first question that we got from the clients is, oh, how much is this going to cost me, right? And granted, we understand the problems and challenges that facing business owners.
Right.
And building a system, like if you're trying to build it from scratch, it's going to cost a lot.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you need to navigate a marketplace and scan all the tools available to you and make sure that you get the right tools.
Right.
And I think this is where we find ourselves most helpful to our clients, because we know the tools and we understand. We come from a place where we have the experiences in serving all these clients prior, and we understand what to recommend to build the optimal business flow, so that our clients could focus on doing what they do the best.
Yeah, that's what it all comes back to. Just removing hurdles.
Exactly, removing hurdles. So, you know, do you want to talk a little bit about, like, for example, what do you see going forward? What are the challenges that? Because I have some ideas, right? And you know, I remain very optimistic. I think that is built into my personality, you know, because there are a lot of people that are calling it doomsday, right? So, coronavirus, this is not gonna, you know, it's the disruptions that it causes will linger and remain with us for quite some time. I mean, and there's no way that we could, you know, get back to kind of like the normal economic conditions. What do you think?
I mean, I think we talked about this before. I think there's not a loss of opportunity. It's kind of like a shift. And that's what we were talking about with, I'll go back to fitness because we talked about them already. But, you know, when the opportunity of in-person was lost, you know, it shifted. It's not like there was no opportunities for gyms to pull ahead. They just found, okay, you know, that we have to do it differently now. And I think you see that in every industry. I mean, what you and I would maybe normally have done in traditional years, we would have started, you know, getting working with people. We would have, you know, done more on-site visits. Instead, we say, okay, we can't do that. So what else can we do? So we do a podcast. We go out and we talk to leads online. We find all these other ways to build these connections. So it's a shift in opportunity. I think it would be a mistake to just look at it as only a loss in opportunity.
I like how you put it, but people don't understand this. It's a zero-sum game, right? Because we see the boom in opportunities for people that are willing to come out and adapt and take them, right? And those opportunities must mean that somebody have lost out. Somebody has already lost out, right? And so the shift in paradigm or the shift in model is going to create opportunities for some while taking opportunities from others.
Yeah, I think that's what really separates the people that walked away in a better place through this whole experience. You know, they probably were the first ones to see the loss, but then they kind of tracked it. They saw where it shifted to.
And it changes so rapidly and quickly in the marketplace that you can't even wait. Like, you don't want to wait. Right. And Joey and I, we've been like serial entrepreneurs. We've loved the idea of creating something and then growing it. And I don't think that mentality is widely shared. There are still people that are sticking with their lifestyle and trying to be comfortable. But I think based on what happened in the past 2 decades, I mean, you had the dot-com bubble, you had the financial market crisis, and now you have the COVID.
Yeah.
I think for anybody, even if you deem yourself not as an entrepreneur, not as an innovative person, you should build in with the idea of uncertainty.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about survival. I'm talking about thriving.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you thrive under uncertainty is what I've always talked about.
Yeah.
And I think when clients come in the door, well, not in the door, but remotely,
yeah.
as the situation right now, the first thing we always talked about is what is your current revenue model?
Right.
Right. How do you bring in business? Is there any other way to diversify that? Right. Whether you're a brick and mortar or whether you are running a strictly online business, there's got to be some sort of ways for you to build in and say, you know what? I want more. I want more, not because I'm greedy. I want more because I want to always stay at the forefront, seeing what my clients, our customers need.
Right.
And I want to be able to fulfill that. Otherwise, I'll be irrelevant.
Yeah.
Right. And this same idea is applicable to even workers. Right. If you work in a restaurant, for example, or if you work in the logistics industries, for example, what do you sell if the external environment changes so rapidly? Like if you work in a restaurant, you can't provide the service when everything shuts down.
Right.
If you work in the logistics industry right now, you don't have things to sell because they might be congested. All the goods are being congested at the ports.
Right.
Right. You go to the dealership, they want to sell you cars. They don't have any cars to sell because everybody is pulling cars from the manufacturers.
Right.
Last month, in July 2021, Volkswagen, on average, sells 32,000 cars to customers per month in the United States. And their inventory level last month, 33,000. They don't have cars for you.
Right.
Right? So if you don't have things that you could sell to your customers, what can you live on? Because we don't care about, how big the profit element is. You don't have things to sell, you don't have things to sell.
Right.
Right? That uncertainty element has to be built in within our mentality and within our planning effort so that we could thrive.
Right.
We don't just want to survive, we want to thrive.
Yeah.
So we're utilizing this platform to not only preach but also to share with you what our observations are, and we'll keep doing that, and hopefully you could find some insight in what we talked about, because what we're seeing here is not just what's being reported in the news outlets. I think we're in an extremely privileged position in that we serve clients firsthand. So we understand their concerns. When the construction companies ask us to help with their digitization effort, they share with us, the kind of hit that they are experiencing. At the time, the raw materials, they couldn't even get enough raw materials to build houses.
Yep.
So what happens with their business model? When we talked about building them, a better channel to solicit leads, the owner actually told us, I don't want more leads.
Right.
I can't fulfill them. Right. But my question for him was, do you expect this to be forever? Do you because you have to prepare for the future.
Yeah.
So the lead generation strategy is you have to review that, right? You can't say that, oh, you know what, I'm satisfied with what I have right now, and I don't want to worry about that. No, the very fact that you are satisfied with it right now is presents a golden opportunity for you to better it.
Right.
All right. I hope you've enjoyed what we've talked about today, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.